Hello everyone, and we've started the safari a little bit earlier than normal this morning because these two young impala rams seem to be having a little bout with one another. It's been some great action. Oh, it looks like another pair are starting, and you can tell by the size of their horns that they are not fully grown mature males. They were born this time last year, but clearly they are interested in starting to learn the ways of the wild, and an important part of their life will be fighting with other male impalas, but that will only be when they're 4 or 5 years old. Will they start competing for females when they are sexually mature? But it's wonderful to see a little bit of early morning action, and that's why we started the safari, like I say, just a few minutes early. Here they go again. Oh. Now, as it so often happens, the intensity of their bout was far more furious just before we went live, and they actually split up completely while the opening title sequence was playing. So we all kind of, our hearts all skipped a beat, and we thought, well, was this the right move? But it seems to be paying off now. It's a beautiful morning here in the Sabi Sands, and it's about 18 degrees Celsius and 64 degrees Fahrenheit. And there's quite a lot of low-lying cloud cover, but nothing too thick, and I don't think we're going to get any rain this morning. And really looking forward to the adventure. There's been some reports sent through of a male lion seen at the Djuma waterhole, and Jamie's busy following up on trying to find him. And she's on the other vehicle. My name's Scott, and I'm teamed up with Wium on camera. And we're going to check our northern boundary, and we've also actually got the walking backpack equipment on board with us, so we're planning on doing a combination of driving in the vehicle as well as walking on foot. So we're just going to see how well the backpack works, and if it is working well, we'll probably spend more time on foot than in the vehicle. But something new that we haven't done before, traveling with the two different sets of equipment. There's some For those of you who were on the sunrise safari yesterday, you would have remembered that incredible sighting of the elephants that we all had. He came probably about 30 centimeters away from us with his trunk, just over here. Hard to tell the kind of depth of field with the camera, but I can assure you he was very, very close. And I'm told that lots of you are still recovering with very high heart rates, and he was actually completely relaxed, and I wasn't concerned at all, really. So I guess it's important to read into the body language of these animals and get an idea of whether they're excited or in a bad mood, and he was certainly in a very relaxed mood, just coming to investigate our vehicle. Now, we are going to be getting into a bit of a bad signal area shortly, so we're going to send you across to Jamie, and you can get a few updates on how her lion hunt is coming along. I hope it's not too long before she has success in finding this male lion, and I wonder which male lion it is. There have been reports of the Birmingham males at the Arathusa waterhole, and again, thanks for all of you who sent those reports through to us. And who knows, maybe we will head across onto Arathusa a little bit later on. But from where they were found, they're actually quite close to the southern boundary of Arathusa, so it may be that they've already crossed south out of Arathusa. Anyway, we'll find out as the safari unfolds, but for now, over to Jamie, and we'll catch up a bit later.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. And what an exciting way to start, with impala playing and rutting with each other. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jamie and I've got Tebbs, my lucky charm, back on camera with me this morning. Right, we did have a report of a male lion at Juma, or drinking at the fresh water at Juma Waterhole. I've done a huge circle of the whole area and I can't find any tracks. So we're not too sure if that is what was seen. It was fairly early this morning. It might still have been a little bit dark. I've got lots and lots of hyena tracks, but no male lion tracks that look fresh from this morning. The only tracks I can see are from the Birmingham boys from 2 or 3 days ago. I know that there have been lots of updates from the Airstrip dam camera, and I will be heading across there in a moment. What I wanted to do first, I'm going to try and get a look at these bushbuck while I talk to you. No. Gone. Running. It's okay, guys. Disappeared off into thick bush. What I wanted to do before I go racing off to Arathusa was to double check around where I last saw Kanuma. Well, we think it's Kanuma. Last night we had a really, really brief visual of him in probably one of the thickest blocks on Juma. Tried staying with him, drove Jigger over trees and round trees and through thorns, and poor Tebbs was doing a jig on the back to try and escape them. And unfortunately we lost him somewhere in the drainage line, only to be called back to the area to see Karula very briefly as well. And I wanted to just check and see if he's not hanging around somewhere obviously here, but I haven't seen tracks so far. Now it seems as though our suspected lion might possibly have been a wildebeest, which I can understand, and that makes total sense because as I drove down to the waterhole to follow up on that update, around onto Vulture's Nest, spent the rest of the morning in considerable embarrassment, since the roads here tend to take a very literal name, just like Wahlberg's. Wahlberg's is where the Wahlberg's eagles nest, and Vulture's Nest apparently is where there's a vulture's nest. I'm just a couple of months behind the times. We do pop across to Arathusa Dam, and if you are watching the Arathusa Dam camera, where those updates have come pouring in, you will have seen, or you might have seen, that tiny little baby hippo that we've been watching. And Oki, who's watching in Oklahoma, you wanted to know, and I know this is something that has been discussed with Scott in the past, how it is that where the nipples are on a hippo and how the baby nurses. Does it nurse underwater or does it nurse on land? And the answer to that is, with the exception of elephants and primates and rock hyraxes, all other animals have their nipples between their back legs. Oh, and cats obviously because they have multiple sets, and hyenas and so on. But I'm talking about the herbivores out here. All other animals have nipples between their back legs, so that is where the hippo's nipples are hidden. They're just very, very difficult to see, and the baby can indeed suckle from underwater, so it doesn't have to go out of the water to suckle. And that makes sense because of course out of the water is when it's at its most vulnerable state. It's useful. What the baby basically does is it sits on the bottom of the water, sometimes rests on mom's back, but usually sits at the bottom of the dam and then pushes up and suckles, and then goes back down again, and then pushes up to breathe, almost like a dolphin. Pushes up, has a breath, goes down, and that's how it spends the majority of its day. Their noses and their ears to stop water from entering there. And the baby, especially, that's important when it starts to suckle, because it's got to form a seal around the nipple. Otherwise, it's going to be drinking water rather than milk, and possibly even breathing it in. So it forms a really tight seal with its mouth around the nipple. very capable of suckling underwater. Clever little creatures. And fascinating to think, and I know that this is something we harp on about a lot, but it's still fascinating to think that for an aquatic mammal, essentially, partially aquatic mammal, they can't swim. And when you think about the logistics of that and the fact that the little baby can't stand at the bottom and breathe, they become even more remarkable in the way that they function. I was going to say something. Bear with me one moment. My train of thought has just gone off the rails. It was slightly derailed by the hippo. Oh, I remember what it was. It's happened. And it's not necessarily just on the face. Essentially what happens is when the mongoose has had some kind of injury or possibly a skin condition that has taken away the fur, or there's some scarring on the skin, then what happens quite often is that it grows back white for some reason. What's remarkable about our little mongoose friend is how symmetrical that whole process has been. So she said it's not that unusual. It does happen. But it's interesting because it's got absolutely nothing to do with any kind of color variation, which is what I suspected it was. And this has definitely been a learning curve for me. I had no idea that happened. Okay. As I said the words "no sign of Kunuma," I found his tracks coming across the road and disappearing into that block. Just where we lost his mother yesterday, or almost where we lost his mother yesterday. Interesting. The clock thickens. Where are you off to, Mr. Leopard? Okay, he hasn't walked along the road. Looks like he's crossed. He's definitely crossed into that block. Interesting, we've been seeing, if it is Kunuma, which I'm assuming that it is, it seems to be the most likely explanation. It's either Kunuma or quarantine. We don't have that many young males wandering around. And it's been fascinating to see how he's obviously been associating with his mother. Quite a bit, actually. That's not unusual. Male leopards do come back and visit their moms and do bump into their moms every now and again before they disperse off. But it's still really nice to see. And those tracks are fairly fresh. I'm just trying to think of my geography right now as to where we are. Let's go do a loop of that block as well. I'm just going to call that in on the radio. Our stations, there's Nkonzo for that, Young Madora Ingwe, coming out of Spaghetti Junction, out of the Mulwati and going straight west into the block across Twin Dams. There's our elephant landscaping team at work. Took things in my way. The viewers also heard sounds of leopards mating at Arathusa, or around the Arathusa Dam camera. It'd be interesting as well to see who that was, whether or not it was Shadow. Tingana, we think, was around Juma earlier this week. So it could be Shadow, could also be Shadow mating with the Anderson male, if indeed it is the sound of leopards mating. We know that those Birmingham boys were also following. I've heard so much about him. Squirrel. What? Squirrel? Where? What are you shouting at? He's sitting right above us, the squirrel that is. He's chattering about something. Which way is he looking? Looking behind us. A very angry squirrel. Very, very cross. You can see his tail switching. Which way is he looking? He's looking into this block. Let's go back a little bit. Oh, we stopped for a ditch. Sorry guys, I've got to go back. I know he's interesting, but I just want to check and see if there's a... What does he see? He's seen something. There's no bird of prey flying yet. It's a bit early. It could be a snake, but again, a bit cold and a bit early. Who's hiding in this block, and is it a leopard? I'm going to do a quick search of this block because that squirrel is very cross and now the francolins are shouting, and while I do that, Scott is watching the beautiful sunrise, so let's see what he's seeing. I'll be back with you, hopefully, fingers crossed, for the leopard.
Well, happy to hear that there's already some exciting prospects in Jamie's neck of the woods. We're going to find some interesting tracks, either coming into Djuma from left to right or leaving Djuma from right to left. Ideally, everything will be coming in, but sometimes the animals leave our property and go off elsewhere. So, always a bit of a gamble and a lottery, but useful to start any safari by checking your boundaries so you've got an idea of what may be traverse. Now our plan is to continue up towards Buffels Hook Dam, which is about another 2 or 3 miles along this road, and once we get there we will probably rig up the backpack and then head off on a bushwalk down some beautiful game trails that lead to the dam. And hopefully there'll be some interesting animals waiting there for us, or at least find some interesting stuff to interpret along the way. There's that element of unknown, and as much as we like to think we know what's happening, most of the time we don't actually have a clue.
Back this way, just because he was looking in this direction, not in the other direction. Oh, something that I've driven over smells amazing. It's probably wild sage or something along those lines. The squirrels and the go-away birds are wide awake. Block that we lost Karula to yesterday afternoon. She disappeared off into the drainage line and away. I need to do a quick loop around here, otherwise I'm going to go back the way I came. Update, having chatted a bit about Kunuma and the fact that he's hanging out with Mum every now and again. An update from Ellen about Karula's second son in Duna. Apparently, now of course for new viewers, our regular viewers have been following the story of some of these animals, particularly Karula, for many, many years. And they know a great deal about their histories and their personalities. Apparently, Karula's second son in Duna, when he was, when he reached adulthood, he stayed, well not adulthood, sub-adulthood, he stayed with Karula and her second set of, or her set of cubs after that, so a third set, and of course their individual personalities. Minyala, I did not hear barking. I wonder if our squirrel wasn't sending us on a wild goose chase. Just saw a flash of a minyala. I mentioned earlier that I did a little bit of research into... No, these Mvula are too calm. Any more than normal, at least. She's still looking around. But I think that's in response to us driving through. Okay. Let us continue on our search, just because those tracks were so fresh coming out of that drainage line. I think he's probably still in this block somewhere here. Right. I mentioned earlier that I did some research that it was... The answer that came back from Julie was, what happens, it's not uncommon. What happens is when the mongoose has been injured or suffered some kind of skin, not malfunction, that's probably the wrong word. Something that's caused the mongoose to lose its fur. Deformity is not really what I'm looking for either. And disease, I suppose, is probably the closest I'm going to get. Some scarring, anything like that that caused the fur to fall out. Maybe stress as well. And that in turn, the body responds when the fur grows back in dwarf mongoose. For some reason, it grows back white in color. Now, what makes me think that it might have been some kind of skin condition, that's what I was looking for, might have been some kind of skin condition on that dwarf mongoose, is the way that it was so symmetrical. He had that brown strip perfectly down the middle of his forehead, and then a little bit of brown around his nose, his or her nose. And that's what makes me think it was probably something that caused his fur to fall out as a result of a skin condition. Checking really, really carefully along this road. This track should have popped out somewhere here if he was walking on a straight line. Unfortunately for us, leopards don't really walk in a straight line, do they? In fact, for the most part, they don't seem to pick a direction. Much like my driving while I'm trying to do 20 things at once. There's also a certain degree of weaving from side to side. As we continue our search for Karula's young man, we got another update from Ellen about the fact that Induna, the son we were talking about earlier, Induna used to babysit the cubs whilst Karula and her mate were, when they were out hunting. How amazing is that? This is the kind of stuff that you would never read about, or unlikely to read about in books. It seems so unexpected of an animal that is essentially solitary by nature. Remember what I said about leopards not walking in a straight line? He's now walking down this road into the drainage line. This is we might have just discovered where he's hiding, or the area he's hiding in. Why did he do that? Why did he do a big loop? Maybe he was hunting, I guess. Maybe he's not relying on the free ride from mom. Maybe he's pulling his own weight. And Kunyuma and Quarantine, of course, are independent of their mother now, so they're more than capable of looking after themselves. He's gone off the road. He's no longer walking down here. He's cut into this drainage line here. Leopard, you're here somewhere. The tracks are so fresh. He could even have been just that little bit ahead of us while that squirrel was alarm calling. The squirrel did see him. He might have been walking ahead of us along this road. Not him, or is it? The nice thing about being out this extra half an hour early is that the light is so nice for tracking. Oh, fly in my face. So at least we have returned to you. We're having a couple of signal issues. We're doing something of a silent track. As we carry on. Oh. Gilly, who's watching in Wisconsin, apropos the conversation we were having about hippos and where their nipples are and the fact that their babies suckle underwater. Gilly, you were letting me know that bears have nipples between their front legs. I didn't know that, but I was specifically thinking African animals and mammals in reference to the only animal, but that's interesting that bears are designed that way as well. I'm just trying to think of other similarities that we might get in terms of animals. Where do seals' nipples go? Just as a random matter of interest. I'm now just thinking. I guess they must be somewhere at the back as well. Double checking all along this drainage line to see if we can spot Kunuma. I've heard stories about Mr. Kunuma and the way that he sometimes responds to vehicles as well as to people. Is this where I had his last tracks? No, this is not where I had his last tracks. I want to poke my nose into the drainage line. If I fail to find Kunuma, then I was planning on heading across to Arathusa to have a look and see what's happening there in response to the leopard update from that side. But Lynn, who's watching all the way in Michigan, Lynn tells me that the leopards that they heard were not mating. They were actually just growling at each other, which is interesting because that day that we found Shadow, sorry, I'm stopping to listen for alarm calls at the same time, but that day that we found Shadow was the time that we lost her very quickly, and somewhere around there Sean reported to me that he thought he heard growling. So I wonder whether Quitile and Shadow aren't having a little bit of a disagreement. Now his tracks came down this road and into this part of the drainage line. And I said I've heard stories about Kunuma. I've heard of him charging the car at some stage. I wouldn't mind being able to poke my nose in here, but it's too thick. I'd have to do it on foot. I don't think that's going to happen. Do a loop around the other side and see if he pops out there. I can't hear any alarm calls, which I should be hearing by now if he's moving through. But if he's taken leaves out of his mother's book, then he's very good at moving without alerting anyone to his presence. Amazing to think that there was all of this drama unfolding at Arathusa last night. Sorry, let me go, just loop around. The updates from Arathusa and the fact that the lions were calling. I'm just going to hop onto the Game Drive channel. Please excuse me because there's a lot of chatter. I think one of the stations is on the wrong radio station. Just going to wait for my opportunity to let them know. Otherwise, I've got a constant conversation in my ear. Just wait for an opportunity. Stations, I'm not sure if you realize this, but your conversation is coming through to my side. I'm not sure if the radio is on stand, if it's feeding through. Oh, let's just double check in there. I'm sure he's hiding in this drainage line. I'm sure he's here somewhere. Kunuma hanging around. Yeah, I think it might be time to take a trip across to Arathusa. I'm just gonna let the guys know on the Game Drive channel that I had his last tracks going down into the drainage line from there. Stations, last tracks for that younger daughter Ingwe, cross Elephant Carcass close to Weaver's Nest Junction and into the drainage there. Kunuma in quarantine, as far as I understand, have been hanging out to the south of our boundary. Oh, cute. Let's have a look at this squirrel, if we can get it. I know if I go any closer, it's going to disappear. Tebbs, I don't know if you can see him. him. Hiding there in the clearing. Oh, there he runs, he's running. Oh, let's just double check in there. I'm sure he's hiding in this drainage line. I'm sure he's here somewhere. Oh, amazing to think that there was all of this drama unfolding at Arathusa last night. And the fact that the lions were calling. I'm sure he's hiding in this drainage line. Bounce, 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 bounce. He was sitting up sunning himself in the morning sun. But I think he would be acting as a warning signal if Kunyuma had come this far. As I said, quarantine and Kunyuma, as far as I understand, have been hanging out pretty much around the southern section of our boundary in the eastern area. So around Torchwood and that side of things. And just continuing on our thought process from the fact that Kunyuma might be hanging out with Mom for a while. There's also, I think it was about a week ago, that Quarantine was sharing a kill with the male that thinks he's the father, or at least is strongly suspected to be the father, Mvula. So it's not just the females that will meet up with their independent sons, but the males do it as well. Let's have a look at this Hornbill sunning himself. Julia, you were letting me know. Oh, bye, Hornbill. Sure, nothing wants to be on camera this morning except an angry squirrel. Julia, you were letting me know that a couple of weeks ago, Kunyuma took down a young poodle bull on his own, which was then stolen by a hyena. I remember that. That happened the day after I first saw him. Scott and I spent the entire morning tracking him up into the corner of Buffelshoek Dam. He was around there, and then the day after, James found him in the drainage line on that kudu kill. Shame, and then he lost it. It was such an impressive kill for a young male leopard, and then he lost it to the hyenas. And we discussed it at the time, and we actually figured it was probably a bit too heavy for him to have hoisted up into a tree until he'd eaten enough of it to reduce the weight. Doing one more loop in this area, and then I'm going to head across to Arathusa to see what's happening there. Sure. And there's plenty of spider webs all over my face and in my eyes. Trees as well around here. See if he's not hanging. Sign of him. His front feet are still sort of just a little bit bigger than his mother's, and his back feet almost look the same size as his mom's, so he's actually got quite tiny feet. And I was surprised when I saw him yesterday. He's beautiful, but he's still around here. I think that squirrel that we heard shouting, I definitely think it was trying to tell us something very salient, that there was a leopard there. We just didn't realize because the squirrel was looking in the wrong direction. We didn't see which way he went. I'm just going to go a little bit faster through here. We know that he's not around here. Crossed into Simbambili. But for those of you who might have missed the updates from the previous days, unfortunately it does really seem as though that young male with the cut on his hip, it looks as though the Birmingham boys have got getting a lot of stuff through, so I'm just going to turn my radio on and turn my radio off. Turn it off and turn it on, sorry, that's the way around I meant. There's chattering happening in here. I'm so certain he's somewhere in this drainage line. Alarm calls. It's tucked away somewhere here. It's such a perfect little hidey hole for a leopard. It's somewhere in here. You can hear orioles calling. The Cape turtle doves. And even black-crowned chagger I can hear as well. But no sounds of go-away birds or squirrels. Gone up my nose and into my eyes. I'm trying to blink it away so we can see. Times like these I wish I was just that little bit extra, just a little bit extra in height to see down into the drainage line. Okay, well it doesn't look as though there's any sign of him hanging around here apart from tracks going into the drainage line. I can't get my vehicle in there unfortunately, so I think we'll need I do want to just poke my nose into that drainage line one time quickly, and I know that Scott is up and about on bushwalk. They've got it working. So let's head across to him now, and I will be back with you a little bit later.
Hello everyone, and as you can see, the scenery's changed quite drastically. We are no longer in the vehicle, and it's taken us a little bit of time to find a good signal area. The backpack that Wium is wearing now is providing a few issues with regards to sending our signal out to you guys. Thankfully we have found an area with decent signal and are looking forward to exploring our way in a west direction towards the Buffelshoek waterhole. We're not far away from there, and barely what she's saying to me when she does chat with me. You'll notice I've forgot my ash bag today, and I'll therefore have to be using another good way of doing it, using fine sand, and it's kind of blowing.
It seems as though Scott's having a little trouble with the gremlins, and I returned. I was going to take this opportunity to hop out and poke my nose in here on foot, but I unfortunately don't think that's going to be possible. Let's try and scoot the vehicle forward. Oh my word, feels like a risky maneuver. I think we'll give that a miss. I feel like the ground might disappear out from underneath the vehicle. I'd rather avoid that, as I'm sure we all would. I've got nothing against Jigger. I certainly don't want to plant her in a drainage line. Alright, let's go check Treehouse Dam and then head across to Arathusa, see what we can find on that side of things. I'm coming for you, Kanuma. I know you're in there. I know you are. Tracks are so fresh. salalas. I'm hoping that the salalas are going to stay out of their way in future. It's difficult because they don't really have that many places to run to, unfortunately for them. And for the moment, I think they're going to be as nomadic as the Shumungwe pride have been. I've never seen the Shumungwes. I've only ever really heard about them. But I know that they went through some similar experiences as the salalas are at the moment, or at least this little group of the salalas. The Birmingham boys aren't really doing anything wrong. They're not, you know, it's part of their natural instinct to do this. It's just very sad because I know that I was, and I know many of the other viewers were rooting for the salalas. And I hope the rest of them manage to escape unscathed. Just do a loop around here. It's also becoming more and more difficult to know where the animals are going. They're distributing quite far and wide just because of the lack of water. The treehouse is looking incredibly empty at the moment. It's got one tiny little mud puddle in the corner, but we're going to check there. Leopards, fortunately for us, are not too fussy about what they drink. They're not like elephants. Elephants are particularly picky. Hello, Impala. On the dam wall. I'm always a bit extra cautious driving along this dam wall. It's not the thickest road out here. Actually confer an advantage on the animal concerned, and this is one example. I don't think it's a deformity. I think it probably broke at the base. Or maybe it didn't grow properly. Either way, he's definitely got an advantage. Although he's not protected on that side, he can angle his head in a way that makes that horn actually far more lethal than having two, using it almost like a spear. And he could do some serious damage to the other members of the impala herd, the impala rams. Picture the ones that you saw fighting earlier this morning with Scott, and imagine that event happening with one horned spear. You can just see how dangerous it could be. And they're nibbling away not only at the bits of grass and plants that are growing around here, but they're also trying to get some of the salts from the mud. It's known as geophagia. They're licking the dirt. Do some careful jigging along the dam wall. I often wonder how much I miss when I cross this dam wall, because I really try not to look left and right too often, especially when it's wet. I slid down here once and I'd prefer not to repeat the experience. That we think Birmingham got the salala, the young salala male, they were calling constantly. The Birminghams were calling in a way that I can't really describe, but it's a victorious, reaffirming kind of sound that male lions give when they kill opponents. Although not that he could really fall under the category of an opponent. But
the bushwalk, but I guess everything happens for a reason, and that helped lead us to this big male leopard. I'm guessing it could be Mvula, judging from the area that we're in. But let's try and get you a closer view of him. Very, very thick bush here. Oh, he's on the move again. And you may notice he's sporting a little bit of a limp. Not something I've noticed before, if it is in fact Mvula. Now to try and pick a path of least resistance. It's going to be tricky in this area. I'm also going to have to get into the game drive channel quickly and just update the other guides that found it. So give me a moment while I do that. Most of the trees we're driving over here are going to pop straight back up as soon as we've got over them, so don't worry about that. Large man leopard is the south of the Pools Road, but mobile towards flat. I'm hoping we're going to get you another glimpse of him. So go ahead, Andrew. He's just up ahead of us, and we should do shortly. Affirmative. Male leopard, south of Hippo Pools Road, mobile towards Cheetah Cat Line. To be hopping out onto Cheetah Cut Line shortly, so that means we should be able to get some frontal views of him. Just going to change course ever so slightly. Make sure the bush is okay, which it is. We're about to get some beautiful, beautiful views of him. So don't go anywhere. Coming straight towards us. Now the only catch is that this is our eastern boundary that we've just turned onto. So as soon as he crosses over this, we are no longer going to be able to follow him. I'm on Cheetah Cut Line now, just south of the Pools. Okay, I can see him. He's still making his way towards us very slowly. And the best spot to stop is going to be just up ahead here. There we go. We may need to reposition once or twice more again, but he is coming generally straight towards us. This, everybody, is a massive male. Look at that dewlap, that extra skin hanging below his head and all the way down his stomach. Just going to creep forward a little bit more quickly. Looks very pale in colour, but maybe that's just because I haven't seen him for long, and I'm still fairly certain it is Mvula, but I could be wrong. So please feel free to let us know your thoughts, but I'm very confident that it is him. guess as to who it may be. If it is in fact Ngana, it means he would have pushed very far east into his territory. And it sounds like a few of you now, after having a closer look, are agreeing that it is in fact Mvula. I know Raisa and Blair have just sent through their thoughts. Absolutely beautiful big cat. He's not moving as fluidly as he usually does. It also appears his front left paw. Oh, it looks like he's going to scent mark here. There we go. A few little sprays. Now, sadly, we're not going to be able to follow him here. He has crossed east over this road, but at least we did get a glimpse of him this morning. And it's been quite some time that I've seen him, probably 2 or 3 months. Let me just reposition the vehicle ever so slightly and maybe just increase the quality of the view. As best we can. Wonderful stuff, and it's not going to be the first time we wave goodbye to Mvula heading east into Torchwood, but it was so good to see him again. And like I said, it's been a couple of months at least since I've seen him. And Chris Rogue and Marisha have agreed with that diagnostic feature I mentioned a bit earlier of those raggedy ears of his. He's got very torn up and notched ears. And each individual leopard will, most importantly, have its own set of spots, which will make it different to every other leopard. It's kind of no different to our fingerprints. But not only that, they'll also have kind of battle scars and scars on their nose, which help to distinguish them from others. And for those of you who are new to the experience, it'll doing as we here, but we'll get there eventually. Speaking of technological issues, it sounds like it's time for you to head to Jamie because there's no signal from this vehicle.
Wow, how amazing was that? You got to spend some time with, I actually don't know who it was. Was it Mvula? It must have been Mvula, surely. The big male? Oh, I'm so glad Scott got a leopard for you all, especially since we spent the first hour of our morning circling so close to leopard. That's fantastic news. Copy that, thank you. What's the standby like for the Birminghams? Fantastic, thank you. I'll make my way there now. Whoopee! We don't even have to wait in the queue. That's epic. Let's go. Oh wait, hold on. Aw, wood hoopers, that was not very fair. They're doing their display call where they do their rocking. They're still doing it in the tree ahead of me. There's no rush, guys. The lions are not moving. There they go, disappearing off. Alrighty, let's go find some lions. What a morning it has been. There's also a big buffalo herd wandering around here. let's head across and see what the action is at the Arathusa Airstrip. I better make sure I don't go too fast on this road. I'm not going too fast on this road as last time I nearly drove straight past Shadow, and it was up to Tebbs to get me to stop and go back because he spotted her. So I'll slow down a little bit. She was around here, and this is where they heard growling days ago. So it could still be that there's a little bit of conflict between Shadow and maybe another female. It could be, not too sure. Could also, of course, be the Addison male making his way in. Now, I know that we saw that unicorn impala, and we have a question about it from a viewer who wanted to know, is that horn damaged for life, or do they grow back every year? And the answer is no, they will never ever grow back once they're damaged like that. Horns only grow once in an antelope's lifetime, and they grow continuously throughout the years. They're not like deer that shed their antlers and then regrow them from hardened blood vessels every year. It is a bony plate, a growth plate that they're born with that sits on the top of the skull and starts to deposit bone as that antelope grows up. And because it is bone, it is a permanent structure. So, I've just passed that wildebeest skull. I should stop for that. I'll look for a skull for you, because if you see them, if you ever find antelope skulls, the horns don't rot away or anything like that. They're permanently there. They're attached as and Europe is football. But those vuvuzelas, those trumpet-like instruments that became very popular, that were introduced by South African fans, supposedly, at least in part, inspired by the tradition of getting hold of a keratin horn sheath and blowing down it. So having a little hole in the top and blowing down it. I've tried it before. It's really difficult to produce a sound. What they've started doing as well is making plastic vuvuzelas but shaped like kudu horns, so curled around like that. So a very interesting question that came through. As we go through this patch, things get a little bit cracky, and I don't always get your questions fully, or at least where they come from. But I think I have a question coming through from Bernie about the male leopards and the big dewlap that they have underneath their necks, and that you see really in the full-grown big territorial males. Bernie, to answer your question as to why they have those, they do have a physiological purpose, and it's quite similar to lion manes. So the male lions have those big fluffy manes that look times on their prey, and they're getting loose flaps of skin and muscle, and they can protect their vital blood vessels in that way. Really amazing stuff. It's so cleverly designed. And it's interesting that leopards have gone the route of the dewlap, and male lions have gone the route of the mane. Sorry, I got distracted there. I saw a wheelbarrow in the staff villages, and Granny Billy Joe, you were wondering whether or not the lodge vehicle got close enough to see if it was still there. I don't know. I've only ever seen Mvula once, from very, very thick bush. I still haven't seen him fully. So I haven't had a chance to double check it. Of course, not being at that sighting, I'm not too sure, but maybe we'll find out from the guests later, especially if they were from Buyatela or Gallagher. I'm not sure who was responding to that sighting first to join Scott, but maybe we can find out from them later if they got a good view of his face. I'm assuming at this point, I don't know how long it's been there, but I would have thought at this point it would have he would have worked its way out. Quills, of course, porcupine quills can be quite a serious and debilitating injury. Reports that they are on the eastern side of the Arathusa airstrip. So we're going to do a loop around, see if we can spot them from there. Also heard reports of a herd of buffalo around them, so there's definitely the potential for an exciting morning ahead, since these boys are such renowned buffalo killers. Okie dokie. Let's figure this out. It sounds like all of them are together still, but we should be able to find 5 male linemen. The only slight flaw in this plan, unfortunately, is that I can't get from here to there without going round. Sadly, there's a bit of a dip. Although it seems as though people have done it. No, they've done it. Maybe we can. We could do anything in Jigga. Let's go do it. Actually, let's go do it this way, I think. I feel a little bit less like I'm going to get stuck in a hole. I might get stuck on a log. They're so close. They're just there. Hold on a moment. No, we can do it that way. Definitely do it that way. It's much safer than finding ourselves stuck in a hole a couple of meters away from the lions. I'm sure that you guys would be terribly frustrated with me if I did that. Okay, so news. Hal, who is signing in from Surrey for the very first time, you tell us that this is your first show and that you're already hooked. Well, I can promise you that it only gets better. We have some of the most amazing things to show you, and I'm glad you're joining us. And please send us through your questions. Don't be shy. We love hearing from new viewers as well as our regular viewers. Hello, you two. Where's the rest of your sorry lot? I see them. Let's start with you two. This current update is for the benefit of Hal and any other new viewers. You are looking right now at probably the creatures responsible for the most trouble that we've had over the last few months, the Birmingham boys. They're 5 young males. We've got the 2 here, and I will take you across to the other 3 in a moment. Now, in the last few months, we've been watching an incredible drama unfold on our soil. We drive around on Djuma and Arathusa and the Sabi Sands, and it's been the center of a takeover that's happened. That looks to me like it's definitely one of the younger boys. I always look for Scrapper when I see these lions, and his black eye. So for Hal, originally this area was under control of 2 older big males known as the Matimba males, the ginger male and hairy belly, and they were in control of this area as well as the couple of prides that were around here. It included the Inkahumas and the Styx pride, as well as the Talamatis off towards the Kruger boundary. And within the space of a couple of months, all of a sudden these 5 young males came down. They'd been seen before, but flying under the radar, and suddenly they decided they were big enough and old enough to start acting on their natural instincts. And they pushed in, starting with conflict with the Matimbas, calling. We don't know if they ever came to physical blows, but they certainly roared at each other for a long time. And the Matimbas fled south towards Londolozi after a while, abandoning their prides. And now these young males came in, and because they're young, they're full of testosterone. They acted out with considerable amounts of aggression, very sadly killing one Nkuhuma lioness and one sub-adult, as well as all 3 young cubs from the Styx pride. They had cubs that were only a couple of months old. And that's all part of natural lion behavior. It happens with these pride takeovers. It's a way of nature's way of keeping the genetics fresh, but it was something that was very sad to watch. And unfortunately, we did get to see at least some of the results of that. But incredible to watch these dramas play out in their natural way. And it's taken these Birmingham boys a couple of months to really get settled. And they finally were seen mating with a couple of the Nkuhuma lionesses. I believe that they were seen mating with Styx lionesses as well, which is a sign that for the most part, the drama is over on this side. And just when we thought things were settling down, the poor the poor Salala pride from Londolozi, where the Matimbas came in and took over, they fled the Matimbas into the clutches of the Birmingham boys. I think that's Scrapper at the back, actually. He's the young male. He's got a black eye on his left side. And he's been an interesting character. He's one of the youngest of the males. They're different ages. And he's definitely one of the youngest, and yet somehow has been the instigator of quite a great deal of the action that's happened. I know that he was the one carrying the cub around after he'd killed it. And when we saw that dramatic scene where they chased the Nkuhumas off the buffalo a couple of weeks ago, he was the first to lead the charge. It's interesting to see how their characters develop, and to draw a comparison between the Birminghams and the Birminghams and the Mapochos, the famous Mapocho coalition. Am I getting that right? Yes, I am. The younger Satan, or Mr. T as he was known, and Kinky Tail, they were 2 of the youngest. They were also known for their aggression, particularly on the side of Mr. T. It's interesting to see Scrapper, or Tokolosh as he's sometimes known as well. Interesting to see him developing the same characteristics. The Birmingham boys, also now known as the Gowrie males. And it's hard to imagine when they're lying down so very peacefully and up to so little that they could ever have been responsible for the carnage that we've seen. And unfortunately, we think very recently responsible for the death of a sub-adult Salala male. And don't worry, Hal, or any of the new viewers, if you're not following just yet, you'll definitely catch up with the whole saga if you continue to watch 6 or 7 when their nose goes almost completely black. There are exceptions to that. That male that we've just looked at has a very pink nose, but if we compare it to the one at the back, he's got much more black around his nose. So you can understand that it's an interesting combination of genetics and the aging process in the sun. Best way to age a lion is to have a look at his canines. That being said, if you want to go and ask them if you can have a look at their canines, you're more than welcome. I'll leave that to you. And short of them yawning, I'm not going to be playing around in their mouths. Especially not his. Very interesting question that's come through. I mentioned that there is a herd of buffalo further up the airstrip, and that these boys are famed for their buffalo hunting skills. And you've got quite a complex question from virtual tours. You wanted to know if buffalo are the main food source for lions in wild safari areas, because we hear about them hunting buffalo so often. The answer to that is a bit more complex. Yes, especially for a group of 5 males like this, it will be very high up there in terms of their food options and their prey selection. It depends on first of all, the size of the pride. Let's start with prides. So, for example, a couple of females, maybe 2 females moving about together, for the most part, they are not going to tackle a herd of buffalo. They could try and target the young ones, but it's not really worth the risk. And you'll find with their prey selection, they might go for something instead, like a kudu or an impala, instead of buffalo. Oh, big stretch. As he did that, he gave this soft little whine. I don't know if any of you have pet dogs when they stretch in their sleep and they do that little whining sound. He just did that. So hard to imagine that they are ruthless buffalo and lion killers when they look that the lion could get seriously injured. And it helps to have at least one male on your side, because the males carry a good 100 kilograms more than the females in terms of bulk and strength. So for females on their own, it's not always worth the risk. But for males, with males, it definitely is. And you'll see it with prides as well. Some prides specialize in certain types of prey. So they might specialize in buffalo. They could also specialize in killing giraffe. Very often what they'll do in the Kruger is to chase the giraffe forward onto tarred roads where the giraffe slip. And they've learned that that's an easy way to get them. And I'm going to continue this conversation, but I'm going to go forward just because one of the males has his head up at least. So maybe we can go and get a glimpse of his face. Oh, buddy. I'm going to try and put Tebbs in a nice position here and myself slightly in the bushes so that we can get a nice view of them. I don't want to disturb them in any way. So bear with me as I do some maneuvering. And while I do, I mentioned that we've got this airstrip in front of us. And Christopher, you were wondering if there's any danger. Looking completely like sleeping cats. So yes, prey selection. These 5 males are experts in taking down buffalo. They've got an incredible amount of strength and size between the 5 of them, and it makes hunting buffalo worthwhile. Because each of these guys, when they do kill something, can probably devour, I would say, in the region of, I'd say 20 or 30 kilograms of food in one sitting. And they will gorge themselves. They need a lot of food to keep that energy level, those energy levels flowing. So they're definitely capable. They're definitely necessary for them to take down bigger pieces of prey or bigger prey items. The buffalo are quite far off in that. Now, I've referred to them as the Gowrie males, not just the Birmingham boys. And Vernie, that's led you to ask the question, how far south have they been ranging? And yes, you're right. Little Gowrie is towards the northern boundary of Mala Mala, and they have, an angry elephant somewhere. Very cross elephant. Sorry, Vernie. They have ranged down into Mala Mala itself. They've also been onto Londolozi before. So at the moment, although they've established this as part of their core central territory, they have been exploring the options available to them. So they've been moving all the way down. And they can cover huge amounts of distances, and until they establish themselves fully, although I would say it's safe to say they're pretty much established here, until they complete that whole process, they're going to continue to range and continue to push the boundaries of the areas that they move around in, and test their neighboring male lions as well. Now a coalition like this carries a serious potential to hold an enormous amount of area to protect and to guard. Hi guys, bye-bye. Good, cheers. We saw it, or I say we, I was not here, but I have heard about it and read about it, with the Mpocho coalition of 6 males. They actually held an enormous territory, almost too big in a way that they couldn't fully patrol and guard and look after. But they controlled, I think, something in the region of 50 to 60% of the Sabi Sands itself. That's about 60,000. The Sabi Sands on its own is about 60,000 hectares, and the Mpochos at the height of their time controlled probably in the region of 40,000 hectares of area. That's enormous. But it was because they had 6 males, and the Birminghams are showing a similar potential. Personally, what I think is going to happen over the next few months, possibly even the next few years, is they will establish a very large territory. The Majingulanis are getting old, so are the Matimba males. I know the Matimba males are getting old. As far as I understand, the Majingis are too. So they're going to start to be pressured by these Birmingham boys, and unless a challenge worthwhile. I know, Vernie, you mentioned that the Majingulanis were your favourite. Somebody is trying to call me. I'm just waiting for them to finish their conversation. Station, who's calling me? Hi Peter, yeah, you're more than welcome. Stations, the report of the Madash at Safari Marti. What's the lineup for that? Copy that, I'd like to take that standby. Thank you. Alright, we're going to have to keep concentrating. There is a lineup for the wild dogs. I know that you guys are seeing them on the Arathusa Dam camera, but the other guides are heading across there first. So I'm going to have to double check. Teresa, Lynn and Colin, thank you for all of your updates. I'm just listening to the Game Drive channel to hear the various updates that are happening around here, because I just need to hear where the wild dogs are moving first. Okay, I've missed the update, but that's okay because we're on standby, so they're going to call us in when we have an opportunity to go in. We just need to make sure we know the correct approach to get there. Alrighty, let's have a look still at these males. There's no point in rushing off until we have an opportunity to join that sighting. We'll have one last look at these beautiful Birminghams, and then I'll start heading in the direction of the wild dog. Beautiful boys in the morning light. Now it's going to take us some time. I'm going to have to head in the direction of the wild dogs and then stick around the area until they call me in to join their sighting. For those new viewers watching and you're not quite sure what I mean by that, essentially we only allowed 3 vehicles at every sighting, and that's to make sure that the animals are not put under any kind of pressure. We don't to refer to wild dog on the radio. How's it, Doug? How are you? Good, thanks. Yeah, I know. I've been rushing around. Cool, enjoy. Cheers. Cheers, guys. Okay, so answer to Auntie Lynn's question, finally, you don't have to wait anymore. The answer is yes, they might have, to an extent. Hyena cannibalize for food. Male lions, as far as we can tell, because cannibalism is something that's quite rare in lion society, but male lions have been recorded to eat other lions, and it's usually almost like a sign of victory, in a way, if that makes sense. It's a way of establishing their dominance. So when the Birminghams killed that one in Kahuma female, they did feed on her a little bit, and it's got less to do with food and more to do with... Okay, we're going to zip around the airstrip again and find out when our options are open to us as to getting into that wild dog sighting. Luckily, it does seem as though they're lying down. And just to finish up our topic of conversation, as gruesome and as upsetting as it can be, Arcadia, you were wondering if there's confirmation that, I think this might be me. Sorry guys, bear with me. Okay. I just have to wait for my chance to actually talk on the radio. The pride. There's no sign of that female that was with them a couple of days ago when you saw them with Scott. And Vince, you're watching from Texas, you wanted to know what happened to her. The morning that Scott had the Birmingham boys, she actually upped and left. I'm not quite sure why. I'm not sure if she wasn't quite in full estrus, but she walked across quarantine clearings at about 10:30, 11 in the morning. We were just busy taking down a tent that we had up in quarantine, and we just watched a lioness casually walk past and disappear off. I think it is the same lioness that was then seen on Arathusa at the dam that evening. So she definitely isn't still with the Birminghams. I'm not sure what's happening there. Whether or not she was not in estrus, she might have just been accompanying them. She might have been coming out of estrus. I honestly don't know. But it doesn't seem as though she's in full estrus, or they would be with her all the time. She'd be with them all the time. That's just how the natural instinct works. Wow, and it seems as though Shannon has been counting wild dogs, and there is maybe 40. There are, not is, that's terrible English. There are 14, maybe even more. Maybe it's the Sands Pack. I've never seen the Sands Pack. I've only ever heard about them. I know that they've been right on the boundaries of our Traverse area over the last few days, and I've been listening to them on the radio talking about the wild dog. Oh, this is so exciting. We're going to go.
Wow, what an amazing morning it's turning out to be. A big male leopard, 5 male lions, and now possibly a pack of wild dogs. So, you guys like a slightly younger male, possibly the same young male that Jamie got a glimpse of yesterday, and there was rumors that that was Kunyuma. And no luck establishing exactly where those tracks went, but we did follow them for a while. They headed to the area of Treehouse Waterhole, and from there we couldn't be sure where they went. And now we've decided to give the backpack one last try. So we're heading into an area where we know that we've had good signal in the past, and we're just going to do some tests to see if there is in fact still good signal there, or if there are some other problems in the backpack. Great questions just come through from Granny Billy Joe in Florida, and she remembers seeing Mvula a week or so ago, maybe longer. I can't remember when you guys saw him exactly, but he had a porcupine quill lodged into his throat or neck. They lost him, and I think even in the views that we had of him, Again, I don't know how much it was protruding from his neck, but it didn't look like he did have anything like a porcupine quill to deal with. So I guess that's good news. And who knows, maybe that's why he was limping a little bit from his tussle with the porcupine, Africa's largest rodents, and certainly Africa's most spiky rodents as well.
Hot demand, so we can't spend as much time with them as we have in the past, but I'm going to loop around. I'll stop here because they're playing. Alright, let's try and do a count and we'll get a nice visual in a moment, but let's just stop here and look at them quickly. All playing with each other.
Go around.
How's it? Yeah, I will do. Thank you. Thanks, Peter. Awesome. Puppies. Turn my volume down on the Cape Drive channel. Oh, this is wonderful. Just scoot around. This looks like our investing pack with the 3 adults and the pups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I was wrong, there's 20 wild dogs here. This is incredible. I'll stop here for now so we can watch them playing with each other. Hear them squeaking. There's some water buck off at the back, so there's a chance they might go for them, but let's watch them play for now. Ooh. 20 wild dogs, I think possibly more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. No, it's coming from the pups themselves and they're being playful. I know we don't have the clearest view, but don't worry, we've got so many. Now the previous pack that we were seeing before, or we have seen around Buffelshoek, has got 11 pups and only 3 adults. Here we've got about half adults, half pups. And Jessica, you were wondering if it's common to see more pups than adults in a pack. I'm sorry, I was about to move out of the way for another car, but the car is stopped for now. And the answer is that it is. Oh, I don't know. No, it depends on the pack itself, because it might have just had a dispersal moment. Sorry, I'm just thinking this through and trying to concentrate on the wild dogs wandering around. Sure. What a stunning visual. Oh, guys, sorry to interrupt Jessica's question. You did hear sounds of leopard mating. I'm going to try and find out who it was. They're not on the property, but you did hear sounds of leopards mating on the Arathusa Dam camera last night. There are leopards mating around here. So that was what you heard. Well done. Very, very well done to our viewers who picked up on that sound. All right. Okay, so Jessica's question, the average of pups can be from 13 to 20 individuals in a litter, and that's the average. So they are capable of producing really, really big litters. So for an answer to Jessica's question, in terms of if it's common to have more pups, it can be, depending on how young the pups are. They just have such a high mortality rate that the wild dogs need to breed as rapidly as possible. And I know that James has mentioned this before, about the fact that most animals within the Kruger Park, so the studies done, have shown that they don't live past 5 years old. And that is something worth remembering, that life out here is very tough for a wild dog pack. I'm actually going to shift backwards now. We've got these wonderfully flat adults, but I want to try and loop around to get the pups. So bear with me for one moment. We do have a limited time period with these wild dogs. We're going to have to pull out in a moment. So I'm going to go and get us a nice view of the pups, and then we're going to have to leave so that we can bring other vehicles in. as you can imagine, a sighting like this is very much in demand. Peggy, you're watching in Montana and you say you can't believe how big these pups are getting. They must be eating dirt. They do grow so fast. This is not a pack I've seen before. I've never seen these animals before. Definitely never seen a pack of 21. But the wild dog pups do grow incredibly fast, partly because their parents are such really effective hunters. And Lynn, you were wondering about the sound that they make, and that's actually also partly to do with how well the puppies grow and how these animals operate. Stop here so we can watch the pups. That sound we heard, Lynn, could well be begging from the pups. That is how wild dogs operate. We're going to run across in front of us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pups. I can count 9. I think there's 10. It's like I didn't even exist. Natasha, I think this is the Sands pack. The Sands pack is in Sabi Sands. I think this is who they are. Oh, it's so wonderful that our endangered species are managing to reproduce at the rate that they are. These dogs are so endangered. And Trent, you were wondering how many pups there are on the Sabi Sands. If you saw some on the Incoral cam this morning. What's up, buddy? Trent, I honestly don't know. Sorry, I'm trying to move my head out of your way. I really don't know. But it's fantastic to see at least 3 groups with 3 sets of pups. The Investec, I think the Half-Tail pack has pups as well, and the Sands pack. So just within our area, the wild dogs that we get to see. Alright guys, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I think we have to pull out of this sighting. If we can, I will try and make my way back in. But what an incredible time we got to share, just however brief it was, with this pack. Let me just hop on the Game Drive channel and clarify. Stations, how many vehicles are still waiting for a spot at the Madash? Okay, copy. Next vehicle on standby. If you want to approach, I'll make my way out of the sighting. Wonderful, thank you very much. Copy that. You may make your way in. We'll stay with them until you get here. Okay, let's try and keep to them for our last few moments. I know it was short-lived, but to see 21 of the endangered animals that we get out here, there's maybe 500 wild dogs in South Africa, and you're seeing 21 of them. Now the fact that they've left their den, Carol, I think that means that they're no longer nursing, and they're making that begging sound that they made earlier. Try and shift forward a little bit. That begging sound that they're practicing, that they're making, that's to get the parents to regurgitate food. So they are weaned at a very young age. Wow. We've still got them all to ourselves for the moment. There's just doggies everywhere. along with the rest of the pack. And it's amazing how subservient wild dogs are. So the alpha pack will get to eat, the alpha pair will get to eat, and the pups don't have to, like lions, they don't have to try and fight for their share of the food. They just have to beg, and the adults will let them come through and eat part of the kill. Oh. Interesting question from Lisa, because these dogs have such incredible subservient behavior. There's hardly any aggression. It's not at all like watching lions or something like confrontational creatures for the most part, which is why they're one of my favorite predators to see out here. Sorry, head's in the way. Look at them go, gambling away. Oh, wild dogs are just never boring. And Barbara, you were wondering if
Hello everyone, and what a morning. Leopard, lion and wild dog. I'm not too sure when last that did happen. Possibly it hasn't even happened once in the whole year that we've been here, that all three of those predators have been seen on the same drive. Now, speaking of predators, we've just stumbled upon the home of another predator. It's a very small predator, and it's been living within this log. It's a hardwood log that's managed to resist the attacks from termites and other animals and create a home for this predator. Now, what I'm going to do is, I haven't seen any evidence of the predator still being here, but what I have found are these little white rings, and these are from the body cells. So nice to know that there's a scorpion living in here, just from seeing his rubbish that he's disposing of when he's finished feeding on these millipedes. And we probably won't be able to see him, and the reason for that is we'd have to rip open this log in order to do that. Now, so happy that you're back on the bushwalk with us. We've got some good signal here apparently. I forgot my ash bag this morning, which is filled with campfire ash that helps us find out wind direction. So I've just picked up these tiny little balls, which are droppings from a steenbok. And on breaking them up with my finger, you may be able to see that there's a very fine powder. Oof, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but you can just see it. There's a very fine powder blowing dung. And the reason for that is it's not in a little brick or a ball. It's been broken up and ruffled up. And there was probably 4 or 5 balls of dung here initially. But now, thanks to insects, probably dung beetles, they've spread all of them apart and it just looks like one big dropping. But this is in fact from elephants. And if you start looking into the dung, you'll find little twigs like this. It's a decent sized little branch or twig, along with a lot of other different parts of the plants, little pieces of grass and roots. Here's a little piece of grass. So lots of different parts of vegetation will be fed on by elephants. Leaves as well, of course, will be fed on. None of which are really broken down very well. They don't have the best digestive system out here, so they require on feeding on large amounts of vegetation. Now this isn't wasteful, because a lot of other animals will come in after the elephants and further break down this vegetation and use everything up effectively. But as we walk through the bush, we keep in mind the wind, we look at the tracks, we look at the droppings around us, and that way we get an idea of who's been here recently, who we could expect to bump into. But regardless of what we think we may bump into or who we think we might see, we must always be ready for the worst. Because if you are walking towards animals, quite a nice open area this though, so you can see quite far, and obviously the further you can see, the less likely you are to startle any animals. The wind's just started to really pick up, and we're going to have to factor that into our equations. Wium, if you just come a little bit closer here. I was
hoping we were going to get lucky. There was a steenbok, which is naturally a very shy animal, that wasn't going to hang around for long, but I thought it was worth having a try. It was just up ahead of us before it darted off. So this is what the elephant dung is supposed to look like. So compared to what you saw earlier, you'll notice that this is a lot different and a regular kind of bolus of elephant dung. A lot of the droppings from winter, when there's not lots of insects around, will remain like this until, of course, termites start feeding on them, and they'll start feeding from them from the ground upwards, and eventually this will become completely recycled, which is good to know. Like I said, everything does get used out here. And we've been chatting a lot about dung and the effects insects have on dung, and Derek has just asked if there's any chance we could find a dung beetle. Derek, I'm certainly going to try. I think I've only seen one dung beetle this whole summer season so far, and it was shortly after the first rains we got in early October. That took us all by surprise. What I want to try and do is show you some of these buffalo tracks there. We might actually be able to get you a view of some of these very pretty birds that are flittering about in the tree. It's not going to be easy, and Wium's got a lot going on. The big backpack, free-handing. There we go, there's the white-crested helmet-shrike. They're very, very pretty birds. And they may pop out into another little opening. Here we go. Wonderful. Look at that bright yellow ring around their eye. And that funny little crest on top of their heads. Off they go. They fly in small family flocks, the white-crested helmet-shrikes, and we do have a cousin of theirs here as well called the Retz's helmet-shrike. Now, I just noticed an excavation foliage on the pathway, and that gives you an idea that it's not heavily used, so it's probably inactive at the moment. If there was no leaves and no spider webs in there, that would be a good sign that it's being heavily used. There's a lot of traffic coming in and out, and it's best to kind of steer clear of these little excavations. Anything could be in here: porcupine, warthog, even hyena. And we are just testing things, so sorry you're losing signal intermittently. Now, Mo in Chicago has just asked why a termite mound would be a good place in case we got ourselves into danger. And Mo, as I'm standing up here, for an elephant or even a buffalo, once you're up on this high point, it becomes a little bit awkward for them to get at you, and naturally anything that's high up looks more big and dangerous than it actually is. So if I was shouting and screaming and waving my arms down at you, I'm going to look more intimidating from up here than if we swap positions. I'm going to get Wium to come up here, and I'm going to go down, as opposed to me being down here going, hey, hey, hey. I'm not sure what you think looks worse, when I was on top or down at the bottom, but it's just a good vantage point to be on, Mo. Not your perfect cover, and again, it depends what scenario you are getting yourself into. That's the most important thing and the most difficult thing to understand about being on foot in Africa. And I guess about a lot of the questions you guys ask us, there are so many variables in each different equation and situation that there's no set rule or set answer as to how you should behave in any given scenario. Each scenario will be different. There'll be different escape routes, different amounts of animals in a herd that may be charging you. So you only got kind of rough guidelines to work off. The rest you just have to go with your gut feeling on the day that any event that is dangerous happens. Good. And Derek's still interested to know a little bit more about dung beetles and whether they're part of the sketch to find them that day. It was highly frustrating, but it was exciting stuff following their tracks through here. And it's great how you do build memories over the weeks and months working in any given wilderness destination, to the point where just about any road you drive down or any area of bush you walk through, you're having kind of pleasant memories of what's happened along the way. What I'd really like to bump into now is a big elephant bull. They are one of the best animals to approach whilst on foot, because their eyesight isn't great, and on a windy day like this it would be easy to get the wind in our advantage and get quite close to them, which is quite a rush. They are also less inclined to want to charge and attack, or less so than the female elephants, who often have young that they will protect very viciously if need be. This is quite interesting. I'm wondering how this got here. This is a little piece of a termite mound. And you can see all the little holes and little burrows where the termites would have been moving through this earth. But I'm guessing an elephant or some kind of a large animal like that must have carried this away from a termite mound. There's a very big termite mound up ahead of us here. Let's see if it's maybe not from there. I can't seem to see anywhere nearby many a leopard in its lifetime. Such an easy tree for the leopards to climb, with a nice slanted trunk, and perfect spots for them to jump up onto and then carry on up into the tree. But no clear sign of any claw marks here. Well, we're going to continue on this walk and see if we can find you anything interesting, because Jamie has found you another wonderful animal that she'd like to show you. Enjoy.
Sorry, we disturbed him, but...
Welcome back, guys. I'll be with you in 1 second. Give me 1 second. Are you rushing off to the...
Yeah, we're going to go to the dash now.
Cool.
Sorry,
have a wonderful time. No problem. Cheers.
Enjoy it.
Bye.
Cheers.
Sorry, guys. We just had to have a quick chat with the landowners from Buffelshoek. Fantastic to meet Hilton and his family. They're heading across the wild dogs. Now, it was sad to leave them, but it's so important that we make sure everybody gets a chance to enjoy their time with them. And this place is just pumping this morning. We've got a thick ones at the base. Hey, little boy, what you digging for? He's still not quite sure how he feels about us sitting watching him, so we're just going to sit nice and quiet. I'll keep my voice down. Yeah, twisting his trunk, giving us a beautiful ride. I know there's been lots of traffic. twisting and curling his trunk, showing signs that he doesn't quite know what to do. He wants to come and give us hassles. So instead he's going to take his frustration out on the vegetation around him. He's going to kick the log. Maybe he's got an itchy ankle. I think he's showing us his dissatisfaction. It's alright, boy. Still showing the signs of displacement behavior. Teenage boy, not quite sure. He wants to tell us off, but he's not quite brave enough. So he's going to suck his trunk instead. In the mouth, straight in the mouth. That's a comfort sign. It's almost like sucking his thumb. Yes, boy. You are beautiful. He's now going to pick up the dead log. He's giving us a show. Perfect displacement behavior. He doesn't want to eat that. That's dead. That's gross. But he's gonna, hello boy, he's gonna come talk to us. Look at those beautiful eyes. Yes, little one. So all those scratches you can see on his side, they're not in any way breaking the skin. His skin is so thick, just from pushing through into thick vegetation. Now the rest of the herd is in the block, but because of his proximity to the road, I'm not going to push to try and get to see them. But that was such special behavior that we got to see. He's relaxed now he's genuinely feeding. But up until then, all of that play with the log, with the dead branch, putting his trunk in his mouth, that's all known as displacement behavior. And it's his way of working out exactly what he wants to do about our presence here. That's why I really, really, absolutely cannot get enough of elephants. They've just got so many little intricate aspects of their personality. The rest of them are moving through. It's thick vegetation. I'm going to try and get us a nice view. I am listening to the Game Drive channel to wait and see if we have an opportunity to go back to those wild dogs. But there's still quite a few vehicles waiting to see them, which is why it was important for us to leave when we did. But we had the most incredible experience with them. 20 wild dogs. Oh, I have a message for you. I did some research. Unfortunately not on our property, but our poor boy Tingana has been roped once again into the shenanigans of the leopardesses around the area. He's mating with Shadow. So you did hear sounds to keep up, as it were, in terms of production. Hello, girl. Okay, girl. I'm stopping here. Nice big female gonna walk out in front of us with her calf in tow. I think this is, sure, it was a while ago, but if you remember Tara Perry's last drive, I think this is the same herd. I've definitely encountered these elephants before. And elephants are such characters. There have been some suggestions that the elephant bull was in fact flirting with me. I guess that's a possibility as well. If he was, then he was doing so very successfully. I find myself totally won over by his antics. Completely and utterly in love with him. We just won't tell Brent that. Alright, let me shift forward a little bit so we can see this lady and her calf. What a special day. There is still that herd of buffalo on the Arethusa Airstrip, and it sounds as though they have crossed, so I didn't forget about them. We've just been so spoiled for choice this morning. Hey girl. All right. I'm stopping. No, I'm stopping. They've had quite a few cars driving past them, and I would say quite a few cars making their way to wild dogs might not be paying the same amount of attention to their surroundings as possible. So I think the elephants have been a little bit unsettled by the comings and goings. I really want to show you that calf trying to use his trunk. Something we've chatted about a lot. Baby elephants in their trunks. So let me try and shift forward for you so we can watch his coordination. There we go. The elephants, when I say they're unsettled, I don't mean that they're going to cause us any trouble. It's just that they're a little bit more skittish than usual, so I'm giving them plenty of space. Just letting you know that's why I'm not getting too much closer. There's our baby coming through. Oh, don't turn your back on us, little one. You can watch him use his trunk and get that coordination going. And Jerry, myself, and Wium enjoyed an incredible sighting with this particular lot, and I think it's the same baby attempting to use his trunk in a successful manner. One of the viewers asked at which age they learn to use their trunks. They use their trunks sort of around, they start very, very young, but they don't really master them in the same way their mothers do until they're much older. And I'm talking sort of around 3 or 4 that they really get to grips with that funny thing on the end of their nose, or that is their nose. It's a beautiful female, the mother of the calf. She's got nice, long, symmetrical tusks. She really is gorgeous looking. Munching away at something that we would struggle to even touch. Baby leadwoods and spike thorns. Age bullying, which they do, elephants do bully. They throw their weight around when they're teenagers. You've said that's definitely signs of flirting, just like boys pulling the hair of girls that they actually kind of like. I think you could be right. I'm not sure I'm his type though. We'll have to see. Maybe he'll come back and flirt once again. But for now, we've got this beautiful female. I wonder what she thinks as she watches the antics of the young elephants. I wonder if she thinks like we do when we see kids playing. Something she's seen it all before. She's seen all that behavior before and smiles at them indulgently. That's what she does in my head anyway. Might be a little bit too anthropomorphic. I might be stretching it a little bit. But nice to imagine, and I certainly think that they're more than capable of demonstrating similar human behaviors. These are going to move off into thick bush. I'm not going to be able to get another good visual, unfortunately. Sure, what a whirlwind of a day. I'm going to stop here. I don't want to push too far behind them. I think it might just upset them. I'm going to leave our elephants for now. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, see if we can get back onto the lineup for the wild dogs. Maybe we can pop our noses in for the last few moments of the sunrise safari. But in the meantime, let's head to Bushwalk and see what they're up to. I will catch up with you in just a few moments.
So we are about to finish a big loop. It's going to get us back into the general area where we left the vehicle. I haven't come across too much. It's quite hot already, and I think that's a contributing factor as to why the wild dog you saw earlier were sleeping, and a lot of the animals have already started to wind down for the midday summer siesta. Although good places to be during the hotter hours of the summer months would be waterholes, because they tend to be quite active, but sadly we're nowhere near one now, otherwise we definitely would have headed across there. what have we here? Now, earlier on, we were talking about dung beetles, and I'm not too sure what this is just yet. I thought it could be, it feels like it's some kind of a fruit actually. I thought it was a bolus of dung that had been rolled up by the dung beetles. There's usually nothing else that's this round and this size, but this to me looks like, oh, here we go. I'll be able to explain this very shortly. What's happened here, this little round ball used to be in a very small cavity in the ground over here. And what would have happened is a porcupine would be the only animal that would be interested in feeding on this, would have dug it out, and it's taken a few bites out of the bark or the outer layer of this little bulb, but it obviously wasn't very tasteful, and that's why it's left it here, just on the surface of the ground like that. So interesting to see that one of Africa's largest rodents has been hard at work here. They're mainly nocturnal in this area, so we don't get to see them often. We actually haven't managed to show you one in the year that I've been here, but we were talking about one a little bit earlier because Mvula, the male leopard we saw, got into a bit of a tussle with one. Leopards will occasionally feed. Again, I'm about 6 foot tall. Look at how much bigger this is, all built again by tiny, tiny little insects. And I know in cities, and us as humans don't particularly like termites because they will often cause a nuisance for us, eat the frameworks of our houses or our furniture. But in nature they fit in perfectly because they break down a lot of the dead plant matter. That is, it's just slithered away into a burrow or a place where it's safe. Would have seen these large figures approaching and thought, there's no ways I'm hanging around here. Not worth taking any chances. The noise was coming from here somewhere. I just want to have a closer investigation in case it is a friendly snake species that we would be able to get up close and personal with. And there are quite a few friendly, by friendly I mean non-venomous snakes in this area. But in the same breath there's also quite a few highly venomous snakes. Thankfully though, even the most highly venomous of snakes are generally not aggressive towards us as humans. Here's something quite interesting. It'll give you an idea how hard some of the woods in this area are, or some of the trees. This is one of the bush willows, and the bush willows make up the family of the heaviest woods in this area, the Combretum family. And look at all of this dead burnt, or braai as we would call it in our area of the planet, and it's something we do a lot as South Africans. Anyway, enough about our cooking techniques over here in South Africa. It's time to get you back onto Jamie's vehicle to recap what a wonderful morning she's had, especially with those wild dog, as well as a few other things. Thanks so much for joining the show, everyone, the safari, and well done to Wium on camera, both on the vehicle and on the walk. It's been a great pleasure. We're going to head back to the vehicle and catch up with you all on the Sunset Safari a little bit later.
I'm sitting parked right at the corner, just far enough away from the wild dogs that I'm not part of that sighting. And there is a chance that one of the vehicles is going to pull out and let us go in quickly before they return to the sighting. I'm just waiting for them to get hold of me. So I'm listening very intently to my Game Drive channel. So if every now and again my eyes go slightly unfocused, oh, I think we have our opportunity. Here comes Andrew. We might get our last few moments with those wild dogs. Oh, Andrew's the best. We have a big thank you to say to Andrew from Cheetah Plains. He's helped us out immensely. Thank you, man. You're the best. Sharp. way, guys, if you want to send Andrew some nice messages. Until the middle part of the 20th century, it was accepted conservation practice to be rid of them. They were seen as vermin, as pests. Crazy to think that now, but that is what they were thought of back then. That was the general conservation. Even in terms of conservationists, they thought of them as something to be eradicated. I'm going to shift forward slightly so we can see the sleeping bundle of puppies. Oh, sorry, right on top of the other vehicle. But we do have a bit of a view of the pups all gone to sleep. So right up until the middle of the 20th century, even in conservation terms, even within Kruger at the beginning of the 20th century, they thought that it was acceptable conservation practice to rid the area of what was seen as vermin. You're going forwards, not backwards. That's cool. Thank you. A wonderful way to finish off our day. Sorry, man, just for the last few minutes of our show.
Cameraman, can I go fast?
Amazing stuff. Thank you, Grant, for that information and for sharing it with our viewers. It's so wonderful to get on top of all of the different animals. And this must be the pack. That's why we're seeing so many pups, where both the alpha and the beta female had pups. It's not unheard of, but it is quite a rare situation for both the alpha and the dog pack, and that level of subservience that they practice essentially from puppyhood. Guys, we can't extend the show, but I just want to say a big thank you to you all, and a big thank you to Andrew for making space for us, and to Tebbs for his wonderful camera work. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and we will catch up with you for the sunset safari. Have a great time.